Alright, got the bench rearranged and all the parts associated with the compounder assembly toward the back, and then we have the input assembly and all of its parts up front. And that's what we're going to work on now. I was originally going to do the compounder first, but there's a couple of details I want to get square on before we dive into that, so we'll tackle this, then we'll move to that. Alright, real quick, let's run through all the components. We have our forward hub here, along with the two associated bearings for it. We have our clutch housing, our overdrive/reverse apply piston, along with Belleville plate and snap ring. We have our underdrive apply piston and balance piston along with its return spring. And then we have the two snap rings for the hub that secure everything together at the base. We have our snap ring for our input shaft along with the shaft itself. And then we have our thrust washers. So this 5-tab thrust washers associated with the underdrive hub. And then we have two thrust washers for the overdrive hub. This one's going to be inboard. This one's going to be on the exterior. And then we have our clutch packs. This is going to be our underdrive clutch pressure plate along with the two snap rings. And we have our overdrive clutch pressure plate and two snap rings. And lastly, our reverse clutch pressure plate and associated snap ring. So I'm going to assemble this thing primarily using the hole in the bench here. And then we'll go over to the press when we need to press things in so that you can see how that's done. Alright, let's get started. Alright, first things first, go ahead and grab your forward hub, and in your kit you will have a lip seal that goes right here. The lip faces into the base, or at the bottom of the hub. You're also going to grab another lip seal that's going to go right here on the journal, and then two O-rings. This O-ring is blue in color, it's going to go at the base, and then this O-ring appears to be either black or a very dark brown or maybe maroon, but it's going to go right here, right underneath the snap ring groove for this snap ring. Okay, this snap ring is beveled and the beveled side faces up. Okay, that's going to be for your underdrive piston set and return spring. Then your other snap ring is going to go there. So check these splines, make sure they're in good shape, make sure they're not boogered up. Same with these. And it's a good idea to take your clutch housing, before you install anything, and then just make sure that there's not excessive play. Okay, this feels fine. If the play was like 2 or 3 times that, then it would probably would need to be replaced, because the aluminum is more likely to be worn than the metal part. Okay, for your underdrive apply piston, check this area in here. Alright, this one has some wear to it. What you don't want to see is any obvious scoring, and you don't want to feel anything either. Okay, in my opinion, this one is borderline. I mean, I don't have a frame of reference to compare it to. Like I said, this is the first one I've ever gone through, so I would probably bring this to my hard part supplier and take a look at some others to see if this, was different in any way, shape, or form that's noticeable in this area here or anywhere else. And if so, I would replace it. Okay, make sure this orifice is, not clogged up. Make sure it's working. Alright, for your apply piston for overdrive and reverse, looks like this is a little dirty still. Okay, you're going to have another lip seal here at the base. Okay, on the inside of it, it faces down, and then you have an O-ring there. Okay, check the cancellations here for wear. Same with this one, check for wear. When these go together, you want to line up the cancellations in each respective part. Alright, your hubs and your shaft. Starting with the shaft first. This bushing has to come out and be replaced. My advice would be to just chuck this up into a drill press. Find a drill bit that's maybe 10 to 15 thousandths smaller in diameter than the inner diameter of the bore here, and then center it up and drill the bushing right through and through. Just got to be real careful. You don't want to actually drill into the part below. So, make sure that your travel is set appropriately. Beyond that, take a small chisel and punch out what, excuse me, what remains of the bushing, and then install the new one. Pretty simple. Thrust washers. So you got your hubs for your underdrive and your overdrive, and you have your thrust washers. So these two thrust washers here are going to be associated with the overdrive hub, and then this 5-tab washer is going to be for the underdrive hub. Okay, for your hubs, you want to check this pilot here, this journal, make sure it's not boogered up, and then check your lugs, make sure that they're not obviously worn, or you don't want to see horizontal or horizontal grooves cut into them. I mean, you see a little bit of wear here on the sides, but if these were significantly deeper, you'd want to replace this hub. And same applies to this. You can see the witness marks that the frictions are making against the lugs. If they're significantly deeper than what you see here, I would replace it. Because otherwise they're going to get caught up on the hub, and you may have either a delayed engagement or no apply, or some other drivability symptom. So this is going to be your underdrive clutch. You have your pressure plate, okay, 4 frictions, 4 steels, and then the 2 snap rings. This is going to be your overdrive clutch pack, your 2 snap rings, okay, 4 frictions, 3 steels, and your pressure plate. And for the reverse clutch, you're going to have 1 flat steel, 2 frictions, and pressure plate. And the clutch pack is caught up in the inner radius of that thing, so there it is. And then your snap ring. Alright, so we'll begin by lubing up everything. So let's pretend that you have your paper rubber kit and you have just installed all of your lip seals, O-rings, sealing rings, and things of that nature in all of the components that take them. Let's pretend you replaced all your bushings, including the 2 bushings that are in the overdrive hub. So you have the 2 bushings way down there. You're going to need to pull those out with a blind hole puller and slide hammer. Just make sure that when you install them, they don't overlap this orifice there on the journey. Alright, so those are lubed up. What I want to do first is install my balance piston, or I'm sorry, my Belleville piston. Let me get that out of the way. Let's see if I can do this on the bench. What I will typically do is try to come up in here with the snap ring like this, and then just try to get maybe 20 to 25% of it installed, just by forcing it in. And if I can do that, alright, the lighting here sucks, so I apologize. But we got this thing compressed part way, so now I want to try to fit it. Like I said, I want to get it started to the extent I can on the press, and then I could probably finish it off on the bench once it's got enough, engagement in that snap ring groove there. Like, it's damn close. In fact, let me go get a hammer, and then I'm just gonna punch it the rest of the way in. Of course, it's kind of like at an awkward angle where I gotta attack it. I gotta attack it literally from the back side. Okay, I think that did it. All right, let's go back to the bench. All right, now we can begin putting everything back together. All right, so first things first. You want to install your sealing rings for your input shaft. And then we'll come over here. Go ahead and install the shaft. You want to make sure that, I'm not doing it, you want to make sure that you put plenty of assembly lube on these sealing rings. Especially this one here, because it wants to stick out, because I mangled it, off camera. Make sure that snap ring groove is fully exposed. This is not. So I'm gonna take a mallet and see if we can get it to fully seat. Alright, looks good. Alright, now we can go ahead and install the snap ring. So just a regular pair of snap ring pliers, all you really need. Just expand it. And then seat it. Alright, looks like I will need to actually seat the input shaft a little bit more. A little bit further, I should say. Just in case the snap ring pops out. Like I said, this one was kind of difficult. I'm not really sure why, but now I feel it's fully seated. So I guess if you run into this problem, you know what to do. You can just pound on the front of it with a rubber mallet until that snap ring is 100% in that groove. That groove is 100% exposed to the snap ring. All right. Go ahead and install your overdrive piston, and then, like I said, you want to make sure that you line up your castellations, your lugs. Looks like we're maybe slightly off, one tooth off. There we go. Alright, I think that was good. One thing I forgot to make mention of, and that's because it's not a real build, so I had no reason to mention it, but this orifice here, you want to make sure that this is not restricted. New ones should come in the kit. They do for the longitudinal transmissions, so you'll want to install it. Otherwise, if you need to reuse yours, or you don't have one, just make sure that it is free of any kind of crud or obstructions that would otherwise cause fluid to pool and ultimately result in either clutch drag or no apply. All right. I'm not convinced that this housing is fully seated. Yeah, it looks like it's getting caught up on the Belleville plate, so I'm wondering if I have to take this whole thing to the press and just gently press this down by maybe 50 thousandths of an inch so that I have enough clearance to get the snap ring on. So this is the flat side of the snap ring, this is the beveled side. The beveled side faces up. But let me see if I could seat it without doing that. If I can't, then I'm gonna have to go to the press and somehow press this inboard, the clutch housing inboard, while I free up the groove entirely, or expose the groove entirely, so I can get the snap ring fully seated onto it, or in it, I should say. Alright, there. And on that side, yeah, I can't tell if it's fully seated or not, to be perfectly honest. Let me go to the press real quick. I'm just going to carefully press the clutch housing in, in toward the overdrive piston and see if that makes a difference. Alright, back from the press. I didn't see any noticeable change in terms of what the snap ring was doing when I had it pressed down. Just put a piece of steel across these two lugs here, and then went around it with the screwdriver, pounded it on a little bit, see if it would move. It wouldn't. I don't know, seems okay. So we're going to proceed. Our next step is to install our underdrive apply piston and balance piston, and then we're going to go back to the press so that we can install the top snap ring. So make sure your lip seal is installed. Check this orifice here, make sure it's not plugged as well. And then that'll just sit right in there. Return spring, and then your balance piston. Just lube up sealing surfaces on the piston itself. And then you're going to have to get a special tool to work with a shop press or arbor press to fully compress the spring so that you can install your snap ring. Now this snap ring is flat, so it doesn't really matter, which side faces which way. Alright, the tool you see me use is OTC 307-209. This is used for 6R80 transmissions, Ford 6R80 6-speed automatics. And it can also be used for the GM 6Ls as well as the Dodge 545-68 RFEs and all the front-wheel drive counterparts that are of like kind in terms of their, architecture. Alright, now we're ready for our clutch packs and hubs. So, first things first, go ahead and install our thrust washers where they need to go. So this one goes on the inboard side of the direct hub, and then this thrust washer is going to go on the outboard side. Just like that. And the longitudinal transmissions have bearings in those locations. Alright, where is my underdrive clutch? So 4 frictions, 4 steels. And let me change the battery out. Alright, fresh battery. So, start with your steel. I want to make sure I have the bottom steel. This is the bottom steel. You can see the witness marks made onto it by the piston. So if you're going to reuse your steels, it's a good idea to just put them back in with the bottom steel, you know, as it originally was. To be honest, I don't think it matters, but maybe that's just more OCD than anything else. Okay, for your pressure plate, the side with the radius here, you know, I guess, you know, maybe you call it a counter bore, or maybe you call it a step, whatever you want to call it. This side faces up or faces you. This side faces down, and this side of the plate is selective. So you will have different thicknesses of plate that will be thicker here on the step. So from the step to the surface for your underdrive apply clutch, that's going to be selective. So before we put this in, we need to put our flat snap ring in. And then we'll go ahead and put the pressure plate in. And then we'll go ahead and put the beveled snap ring in. And I fucked that up. I kind of just take it back out. You should actually leave the top clutch out, top friction, before you put the flat snap ring in. Now we'll install the flat snap ring. Apologize for the clunkiness, but I want to make sure it's presented correctly and accurately. So if I have to back up and reset, you know, that's what I'm going to do. And I think we have it all the way in. So there's the ends right there. So now go ahead and install your friction. And again, the wide portion of the plate faces toward the underdrive clutch. Then your beveled snap ring, the beveled side will face up, face you. And I want to install this so that, just like the other one, it's, you know, the two ends are right underneath the lug. And I don't know if it's going to let me do that, but let's see. This snap ring can be a pain in the ass. All right. Again, how critical this is, I don't know. I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea if it's important or not. And even though it was only a couple of days ago, I literally cannot remember how this was when I took it apart. All right. What I'm trying to do is get this side such that it's, I guess, minimally protruding into the castellation, and you know, that would apply to both sides. If I can't do it here, like with this last attempt, I'm gonna just say to hell with it. Yeah, to hell with it. Alright. That was a little brutal. Alright, so now we're ready to measure our clutch clearance. So bear in mind we're going to use friction, so I wouldn't be surprised if I'm either at the very top end of the spec or out of spec. But at least you get to see, you know, how it should be done, at least how the book calls for you to do it. So what we need to do is take this drum out of the way, put the pump here, and then insert the drum over and into the pump. Then put a dial indicator on a pedestal or, you know, some sort of means to support it. Then we're going to put the plunger here on this top friction tooth, and we're going to work the clutch and see what kind of reading we get on the indicator. So I'm going to take a reading, say here, and then 180 degrees out. If you wanted to be, you know, real thorough, you would do all 4 points, 3, 6, 9, and 12, and then average them, but I'm not going to do that. So let me turn the air on, get this set up, work the clutch pack before you take your measurement, and then take your measurement once you've, you know, worked it a few times. Alright, we have the dial indicator set up. I already worked the clutch a bunch of times just to kind of get things loosened up, and so we're ready to take a reading. Now, a couple things real quick that are very, very important when doing this, specifically with this clutch pack. So you only need 30 psi air, okay? That's first and foremost, maybe 40 tops. The reason being is that when you charge this circuit, if you have enough air pressure, and I would say 45 to 50 is enough, this entire complex will want to jump right up off the pump. So what I would recommend you do here is, if you still have them, install the old turbine shaft sealing rings. Do not install the new ones, and same with the stator. You know, keep the old sealing rings installed so that if this thing does jump up and, you know, gets high enough to where one of those sealing rings pops out and then it comes, you know, crashing back down onto the pump, cutting the sealing ring, it's not your brand new sealing ring, it's the old one. So 30 psi, and then put a hand here to kind of stabilize the housing and prevent it from jumping up. So like I said, those are two things that you really want to keep top of mind before you measure your clutch clearance like this. If you want, you can certainly use feeler gauges. I like to use the indicator method, but you can, if you can get feeler gauges in there, you can use those as well. So we have our circuits labeled: underdrive, reverse, and overdrive. So I have the plunger sitting on the inner tooth of the top friction, and we have the entire clutch pack kind of pushed towards us so that we have enough space for it. So we're sitting at 0. I'm going to take 2 readings, one here and then one 180 degrees opposite, and we want to see a reading between 36 and 58 thousandths on average. See, that was probably about 30 psi air right there. Okay, right here is where I feel the drum wanting to come up. We're at 52 thousandths. So I'm going to call that 52 thousandths. Okay, reset. So 36 to 58 thousandths. So that first reading is good. Okay, that moved it. Okay, 52 thou, we're returning to the 2 thou below 0, so let's call 54, split the difference, that's 53 thousandths of an inch clearance. So we're 5 thousandths under where we need to be. I mean, if this was a real build, I'd be perfectly fine with that. Now, newer frictions are probably going to have maybe 1 to 2 thousandths, you know, more meat than used ones like this. So you figure you'll be closer to the bottom end of the spec with a brand new clutch module and a brand new steel module. And I would always recommend you install both clutch and steel module new in all these transmissions. Alright, direct clutch, or I should say overdrive clutch, excuse me. Direct clutch, that's in the back of the compounder assembly. Alright, so here is your overdrive clutch pack, 4 frictions and 3 flat steels. Note that the color and the pattern on the friction is different between this clutch and the underdrive clutch, as well as the reverse clutch. The underdrive clutch and reverse clutch, the pattern is the same. It's like this V-shaped chevron type pattern. all the oil grooves are at an angle, where here everything is, you know, more or less radial, straight up and down. So you have 2 snap rings. You're going to have a wavy snap ring, and then you're going to have a flat snap ring. So first thing you're going to do is install the clutch pack itself. Start with a friction, and then a steel plate, and then so on and so forth until you run out of frictions and steels. Okay, if you want to soak your clutches, you can. The fluid to use is ATF +4 full synthetic. If not, that's fine too. I have a whole video on, you know, explaining why I don't soak my frictions. So if this was a real build with a fresh clutch module, they would be going in dry. Okay, so first what you need to do is install your wavy snap ring. Okay, the wavy snap ring is going to go on the bottom here on the outside of the clutch basket or clutch housing. So this is our wavy snap ring. Make sure it's all the way down. Alright, now your backing plate. There's a step side and then there is a flat side, or a more or less flat side. This is the side that is stepped. Okay, this step is much larger than this little step here. There's also a dot indicating which side faces down. Now, the dot could potentially be confusing for folks because I think everybody's used to, you know, seeing a dot and having it mean that part or component faces up or faces you. So I don't know if it was necessarily a good idea to go with a dot, but you know, that's Chrysler for you. Alright, here's your flat snap ring. You're going to have to compress the entire clutch pack a little bit to get the snap ring fully seated into the underside lip. It's not really a groove per se, it's a lip. And of course my glove gets caught. This thing's trying to make a fool out of me and it is succeeding quite admirably. Okay, there we go. Just double check it all the way around because once you put air in here, if this thing's not seated, you'll know. Alright, let's go ahead and set up the dial indicator. Alright, this is going to be a little bit different in that when we put air in the overdrive feed circuit, the piston is going to, you know, clamp down, so to speak. It's going to go in that direction, not up. So we want to see a reading between 43 and 92 thousandths of an inch. Alright, so zero it. Alright, so that's giving us the equivalent of, it's like 76 thousandths. We got to read the indicator backwards and subtract what we're actually seeing from 100. Yeah, 76 thousandths. Let's go 180 out. And that looks like it's giving us 84 thousandths. Alright, I would recommend you actually measure all 4 points of contact and average those 4, but we got 76 and 84, split the difference, we're like, I guess 80. So 80 thousandths for used frictions and steels is fine. You know, if we were to actually go back in with this thing, you know, that wouldn't be too bad. Alright, the last clutch that we need to install is the reverse clutch. So you have your 2 frictions in steel, your backing plate, and your snap ring. Okay, with the backing plate, what you're going to do is install it all the way down until you get the snap ring groove fully exposed, and then once you have the snap ring in, you're going to pry up on it with a flat blade screwdriver until it's against the snap ring so that the reverse clutch becomes unbound. Alright, you're going to have to tap it, but you shouldn't have to be overly violent with it. If you find yourself having to take like a hammer and a punch or something like that, then there's something wrong. Alright, so now as you can see, the clutch is bound, so you just need to pry up on the backing plate until it's fully against the snap ring. Okay, and this is true of their longitudinal equivalents, the 68 RFE. Alright, so this gap in here is what we're going to measure. So let me turn the air back on, we'll reposition the indicator, and we'll take a clearance measurement. Okay, again, you don't need a ton of air pressure, just maybe 30 to 40 psi, that's all you need, and we're going to go ahead and measure the travel based on how far that top friction moves. So plunger is on one of the inner teeth, and we'll go ahead and work the clutch. So it looks like 77 thousandths. It's not returning to zero, maybe 76 thou. So we're starting at 1 above 0. 76 thou, 2 above 0. 77 thou on the indicator, 1 above 0. We're going to call that 76 thousandths. And the clearance we're shooting for here is between 30 and 49 thousandths. So we're obviously way over that. So let's go ahead and spin this 180 degrees out. Re-zero, make sure this is tight. And let's see what this side yields. Alright, that's 65 thousandths. Returning 1 below 0, so 64. Here we're at 67, 1 below 0, 66. So 65 thou, I think 76 thou, split the difference. We're at 70 thousandths clearance, which is 21 thousandths clearance too much. Alright, let's take the indicator away. Now if you find yourself in this situation with the reverse clutch where you're outside of clearance, what you need to do is find a different snap ring, because these snap rings are selective. So let's measure this one real quick and see how thick it is and what we need to do. Or what we would need to do, I'm not going to actually do it, but what we would need to do to bring the clearance within specified ranges. So again, 30 to 49 thousandths is what we're trying to manage to. And the snap ring is 70 thousandths thick, which puts it at the middle of the road in terms of the available snap rings. The thickest snap ring available is 91 thousandths thick. So if we were to install that in here and recheck, we would be right at the upper range of what the factory calls for this clutch in terms of its clearance. So, and that would be fine. It's a reverse clutch. It's not on unless you're in reverse. So, no big deal. And again, the other factor is the frictions and steels themselves. I mean, if you're using frictions that are worn, using steels that are worn, then that's another, say, anywhere from 1 to 3 thousandths worth of clearance that you're giving up. So it's why I always install brand new clutch modules and brand new steel modules in an overwhelming majority of the transmissions that I actually rebuild. Alright, so we got to remove the overdrive clutch again. And you just have to take out the flat snap ring. You don't have to take out the wavy snap ring. Come on. Alright, now we're going to install our hubs. So the reason why you have to remove that clutch is, you notice down here, the lugs don't go all the way through, at least the female portions of them. There's this lip that runs all the way around the circumference of the hub that will prevent you from getting it past the clutches. Alright. So just double check here. Make sure you have your thrust washer, 5-tab thrust washer, and then for your bearing, it's going to go like this, and it just snaps right into place. And go ahead and install your hub. Make sure it goes all the way down. It won't fight you. And then for your direct clutch, make sure you have your inboard thrust washer and of course your outboard thrust washer. Install. And then go ahead and install your overdrive clutch back in. And again, I should have pointed this out earlier, but the steels in the direct clutch have these little notches cut in them. The steels for the underdrive clutch and reverse clutch, which is the same steel, do not. Okay, step side here, facing down. And we are not aligned on our castellations, so reposition it so that we are. Okay, reverse clutch. Normally, when you have the snap ring groove fully exposed, the clutch is going to be down. As you can see, we were able to install the snap ring, but the clutch still has clearance in it. So you know that, we're way out. And this is something that you can, readily diagnose on disassembly, to where once you have the snap ring groove exposed to where you can take it out, if the clutch is still moving around like that, you need to get a different snap ring on reassembly. It's usually not the case. To be honest, I cannot recall if it was the case on this one. I just don't remember. But it's something to kind of keep in mind if you're going through these things for the first time. Okay, that is the input assembly. So now we're ready to move on to the compounder assembly.